This is going to be about the Phantasma. It is sort of a response to a video that got made, and also signal boosting response to that video. Um, there's another Warframe YouTuber, moug, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, that recently made a video about the Phantasma, more or less calling it shit. They doubled down on it, so that's not an over-exaggeration. But let's go ahead and see what they said. It's going to be pretty quick. You'll get the general gist of it.
Alright guys, so today I'm gonna rethink the Phantasma Prime.
They're revisiting it.
rewatched Nightmare's Frame.
Alright, let's look at their build so far. Let's see if we can screen grab that Riven. Okay, so they've got... Let's just go ahead and grab that. Because they were having issues with the build. Not a big deal. It's a beam weapon. We're going to view this as a learning experience. So let's look at their weightings. They got 225 heat, 10 radiation, 45 viral. So they're prioritizing viral massively. The negative's pretty nasty, but they're on Wisp, so to each their own. But it looks like a pretty standard status build. Not a big deal.
Rewatched Nightmare's Frame's video.
Alright, so he's Nightmare Frame. I've got it up here. We'll take a look at it.
Force proc impact is really good if you want to use it with primary accelerate.
And
Alright. So at the end he comes to the conclusion.
don't run out of ammo.
He's showing the Phantasma running out of ammo and not being able to kill Grenier.
Links for the builds will be in the description. Please just stop yapping about Phantasma Prime, it's not good.
Alright. So there's the context. I'm going to post links so you can see it. We're not going to try to take anything out of context. Nemesis, I butchered that. There's accents on the E's. Came up with a counter video, but he used the regular Phantasma. It's still basically the same thing. The crit chance is 3, it's garbage. The crit multiplier is 1.5. The status chance for projectile is the same. Not a big deal. He goes with a status build. But I really feel like the Phantasma Prime does have the ability to do like a proper crit build associated with it. I even rolled a Riven for it. And again, this guy showed he had a Riven on it, so we're going to be doing a Riven build to match, though better rolls. But he's got status, status chance, toxin. I'll link moug in the box below. Nemesis also. I might even do pin comment. Okay, so Nightmare Frame, super popular Warframe YouTuber. We're not going to stand him here today. He's got enough dick writers. But let's see what he was saying. He generally knows what he's talking about and is a good source of information.
Force Phantasma. You can use the Phantasma Prime or the regular Phantasma. Either one works just fine. Its alternate fire splooges on enemies and procs impact. Now that force proc impact is really good if you want to use it with primary accelerate. And now your Phantasma can be a primer and some...
Okay, so Exhilarate is a primer build. Not building for damage, you're trying to get utility and as many effects as possible on the weapon. Not a big deal. It's how you use it. You can very quickly keep your energy regen. Exhilarate does have some uses. On weapon impact status effect, plus 1.2 energy per second for 10 seconds, stacks up to 3. With this weapon, very easy to get those impact statuses. So basically, he wants to equip this on his Phantasma to get 3.6 energy per second. If you're running Nourish builds, that's a lot. Or can be, depending on your strength. But it's just a status build. Not a big deal. He's also got heat and electric builds.
The Phantasma Prime or the regular Phantasma.
And he shows it here.
Its alternate fire splooges.
Just like a heat build, he's clearly got an electric. Not a big deal. The heat is the general use one, I would feel. The electric one is for murmurs.
And procs impact. Now that force proc impact is really good if you want to use it with...
Alright, it doesn't look like he shows the electric one, so that's gone. It's a primer build. whatever. When you start priming overall, when you start priming with primaries, the builds tend to look a little weird because the secondaries have just been given the reach around for making priming super easy, right? I personally tend to use a magnetic Kuvacomb. There are obviously many weapons that can be used depending on what you want, depending on what statuses you want. It's always up to personal opinion on how you go about things, but that was a status build, so or a primer build, so not a big deal. He wants radiation, he wants the energy, he wants viral, and that's what he's using the Phantasma for. And because of the force proc, it's literally middle mouse click, and you'll get your impact stacks. Not a big deal. He just wants it on demand. So Nemesis is right here. He talks.
That is called moug,
with a wonderful voice.
however you pronounce it.
Talking about status. Talks about status weightings. We're going to go over all of that a little bit today, as well as some beam basics. The Phantasma is a top tier weapon, regardless of how you want to view it. And we're going to go over some basics for the beam, the relevant parts. And we're going to actually use another beam weapon called the Spectra Vandal against the Demolist to show this interaction. The issue with beams is that is the Warframe accounting of where status and damage is. Okay. It does all of your damage is there, but it turns back into hidden statuses. Okay. With beams, it deals 2 ticks of damage, and we'll show proof of that. Let's see. Okay, we're going to use this build. Slash radiation. We're going to be shooting a Demolist, and we have a Riven that is a puncture delete. So the only status that can proc on the enemy that I'm going to shoot is slash. And we'll get rid of diffusion to reduce our multipliers. And we'll run enough status duration that we can empty our magazine with a green mote from Wisp, so we can get our entire magazine out before this first slash tick starts to come off. And because we're running as close to 100% status chance as I can with this, it's 100.8. We're basically going to be able to figure out exactly how many statuses are being done. So the number that we're going for is our magazine is 80, since we're basically getting 100%. And because beams deal 2 ticks of damage, we're going for about 160. This should be real close. It could potentially be a little bit more, but it's probably going to be one below, just out of, noticing what they can do. The first tick of ammo expenditure tends to not trigger anything, or not consume anything. Or it'll consume ammo, but it won't deal damage. So, okay, so we're going for about 160. We've got our mag of 80. We're going to unload. We're going to counter slash procs. And we're done, and we're actually at a perfect 160. Alright, so there's the 2 ticks of damage. That ended up being Johnny on the spot. I've tested this before. It can be 158, 162, but it's generally with this build, the way it's set up, it's that number, give or take 1 or 2, right? Now, if we incorporate multi-shot, and we are going to make this easy, we are going to do exactly plus 100% multi-shot to give us a multi-shot of 2. With beam weapons, now again, the only thing that's been removed is status duration. We've got fire rate from the green mote, so we're still going to be able to unload our magazine before the first slash tick disappears. So our weightings haven't changed. If you notice, the base or the modded damage goes from 286 to 572. 286 times 2. That's where that comes from. That is going to be the number that we see on the screen when we hit them. Or that's before damage reductions, right? And modifiers. But the number that we're going for is we're checking status procs again. So even though beam weapons condense all of their damage into one visual instance, what ends up happening is when you trigger a status proc, where normally you would have a bunch of multi-shot, and each individual bullet would roll. If you have multi-shot on a beam weapon, your status chance, when you trigger a status chance, will proc the number of multi-shot that you have amount of statuses. And we'll show this in another weapon, how it can multiply and get kind of nutty. So with this, we have 2 multi-shot exactly. The number that we got before, so it's a magazine of 80. We deal 2 instances of damage, and now we have 2 multi-shot. So the number that we're looking for is 320. So 304, that's that thing with the beam at the end. Actually, let's just shoot it again to make sure. Everything will come off, we'll wait for it to fall off. So 304, let's shoot it again. $323, now it's over. So you see how just by adding multi-shot, when a status triggers, I'm getting 2 status procs because of the accounting for the beam weapon. Okay? So you would normally see this on a normal weapon, but it looks weird because it's a beam and all of that multi-shot is condensed into a single beam. So where, say like the Phantasma, where you'll visually see it do like not good damage, but the status procs are going crazy. It's because the game can't show you on this instance of damage, you triggered 16 slash procs. It just shows you status proc trigger or heat status trigger. It will show you each individual status that you've triggered. So if it's unique statuses, you can do like it'll show like an electric, a toxin, a heat, radiation, corrosive, every single one of the statuses. It will give you an icon for them. But it doesn't show you triggered 10 heat dots, like 10 electricity procs. It doesn't show you that. That's accounted for in the top. And that's one of the main issues why beam weapons look so weak, is because when you are used to hitting it in terms of like a visual vibe check, when you hit something with like a normal weapon with multi-shot, you can see each individual status that's been triggered on the pellets, right? So that's where the accounting is coming in. Now there's some stuff to mess around with base damage and whatnot. Like obviously base damage and multi-shot is straight up multiplicative to each other. That makes sense, right? But this is the main thing to keep in mind with beam weapons, is the math accounting is there. Everything is there. But it condenses all of the damage into one number visually when you're looking at the damage that you're dealing. So not the status procs. I'll shoot it again just to sort of make the point. But where you see like 136, you see 683, the little hit damage is what's getting simplified. Now all of your damage is still there, but that's the thing. So if, just to sort of, you know, show it again, where with 320, we'll go up a little bit just to show that it works. So before, we got 160, right? Because it's 2 ticks of damage times the magazine, if you have 100% status chance. But this time, we're going to multiply it by 2.2. So let's shoot it again, and we'll show that with the multi-shot, it's accounting on the status trigger, where there's 2 status procs every time a status proc gets triggered, and there's a 20% chance to trigger a third one. All right, 357. The number that we were looking for was 352. Our status procs went up. This is the way beam weapons work. All of your damage is accounted for. It's not a big deal. Now, there are some things because of how the condensing of the information to make it a beam can yield some funny numbers visually. But all of your damage is accounted for. So, now to go on to the Phantasma. Actually, first and foremost, let's get rid of that beeping. Okay, so Nemesis used a regular Phantasma. I'm going to use the weapon that the other guy used, moug. And for my build, I'm doing... Oh, this is the heat. Hold on. Because he was originally talking about an electricity Phantasma. I went ahead and level capped with it to prove the point that the weapon's good. Okay? He used the Riven, I used the Riven, but mine is rolled for the purpose of proccing electricity procs. So we did Grenier, it was Kappa, I think. Disruption level cap, whatever. My Riven is status chance, crit chance, electricity, with critical deceleration and primed ravage. We're getting 38.4 crit chance and a cool 4x crit multiplier. And we have 64, give or take, status chance per projectile. And we've got a monster electricity weighting. Okay. So this weapon is not built for self-priming. It's built to get dots onto shit. Now, this weapon normally... I've been using against the Murmur. It's the reason why I made an electricity Phantasma. It does very, very well on its own against the Murmur. You can even do Atomic Fallout instead of Shell Shock and say like 100 munitions here. Or you can do a Murmur faction damage for general Murmur mission running. It works really well even in Steel Path. But it's up to you. Okay, it's up to you. So we did a Grenier disruption level cap. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show the worst Demolist kills so you get an idea. Like, obviously, it's really nice seeing everything work out really well. But just show the philosophy behind it and show you the worst that it could possibly do. And know that it does better, right? So, with this weapon, the modifiers are simple. Let's grab some stuff that's... we'll build ours from the ground up, and we'll mention new bro builds. So base damage, if it's a Steel Path build, you go with Merciless. If you're doing a dot build, point blank. The new bro build would look something like this. Crit. Crit damage, fire rate. And you would either pick corrosive or viral to personal preference. And then you could pick like a dot. So for corrosive, your dot's going to be heat. And blaze just to get that dot up a little bit more. This is a really good generic run for like Star Chart. Obviously, it doesn't really work. I mean, it'll get the job done. And I guess it... Hold on. I missed... There we go. Okay, so... You would save a couple of Forma. You wouldn't need an Exilus. And when you start doing Steel Path, you would just start dropping in Merciless as you were going through. Right? So, there you go. No Exilus. New bro build, if you don't have vigilante supplies, shotgun, ammo, mutation, this one. And you'd rank it up a bit. The Phantasma is a little ammo hungry, so I can't recommend enough getting the ammo mutation on there. ASAP, And as you rank up, you'll start swapping out mods. So the first thing that we swap out for is we get to arbitrations. We get our let's see. We'll just start over. Alright, so we get multi-shot, our galvanized multi-shot, savvy, merciless from Steel Path. And I'm gonna start assuming that you got better mods. Critical deceleration, ravage. 33% is a little low. But the fact is that it is enough to be usable. The important thing behind the crit is generally as a gameplay style, I try to aim for headshots just naturally. And when you crit on a headshot, you get the weakness multiplier plus an additional 2 damage. I'm willing to sacrifice some efficacy in the weapon to not self-prime. I tend to run with a Panzer, so I'm dealing... I've got viral primed on most things to begin with. If you want to put corrosive on and go corrosive heat as like a steel path build, it works great too. Then you would do heat, and you would have your choice of fire rate. You can do vigilante fervor if you want. And the philosophy behind it's pretty simple. But with this weapon, with the level cap, I went with a hybrid setup because I was running with 3 other people, and I can take advantage of their buffs also. But with this, if you want to do the status, obviously we're going to assume ammo pickup, and you sort of have 2 flex slots. You can put more multi-shot on here. A lot of people do that. Nothing wrong with that. And maybe like beam length if you want. Beam length works really well on the Phantasma. It's got a chunky range to begin with. So galvanized acceleration has something to really push that beam out further. If you don't have galvanized acceleration, ammo mutation goes here, and you're essentially good to go, right? Swap out mods as necessary, and just sort of as it works now. But repeater clip, okay, this works. They fixed it. If you do not have primed ammo mutation, it is hard for me to recommend repeater clip. Because you chunk through ammo. So this is best in slot. Shotgun barrage is a little bit slower. You still kind of need the ammo mutation, the primed version, but you can probably get rid of or get away with a regular ammo mutation. But for whatever reason, with repeater clip, that tends to be just enough to be over the mark to where ammo mutation can't keep up, or the regular one, and you really need primed. So prime's going to go back here, shotgun barrage is going to go here. Fire rate, faction damage, you could drop the crit in here. You could do faction 100 munitions, or just do like regular crit and 100 munitions to get those procs going, because at a minimum it's going to be a stack for your savvy. So you still will see like a slight increase in damage. And that, most of the time, that's how I'm running the Phantasma, as like a generalist build, right? This would be like a general build that I would use, right? Where I'm not really diving too heavy into a specific status. You would lower the corrosive down, obviously. So the heat procs more. That's about right. So 13.3 heat, 6.8 corrosive. It's an okay balance. You're still a little weighted heat, but you have so much multi-shot, you're proccing 50% of the time anyway, so not a big deal. Or 50% of the time, you're proccing 12 statuses at once, right? So this is a decent balance. Obviously, customize it to your needs. We're starting to get into Steel Path. I'm expecting you to know the basics of building, but the issue is the fact that it's a beam weapon. So let's go back to the level cap, because that's what this was about. Just showing that it works. So base damage, multi-shot, crit chance, crit damage, 60-60 for electricity. We even rolled a Riven. Actually, did I buy this one? I forget. I might have bought this one. Another, basically like another 60-60, but this one it's like a 47-49 plus some extra crit chance to make the crit chance a little more usable. Prime charge shell, getting that elemental weighting for electricity as high as possible and giving as much electricity as possible for those dots to chew on. And obviously our faction. Ammo mutation and merciless. And this does really well. Now, the problem that most people have, especially... You know, we can actually do Demolisher. Especially when you're looking at electricity, is you think, oh, tons of dots, not a lot of damage, right? It's like, wow, 600, right? You strip, and the electricity dots go way up because they get murdered by armor. It's the same as gas, right? So a little bit better. And we'll bring in something more generic. Let's do our exos. Obviously, that's not super generic, but a little more indicative of the type of enemies that you're going to be like trash clearing. So we've got a 5300 electricity dot. Charge it back up. Alright, good enough. And the electricity dot is actually with no damage reduction from the armor. Is whatever is enough to one-shot. So the electricity damage is actually pretty damn juicy. But it comes with the extra condition that you gotta work for it. You can't just shoot a fucking enemy and do a ton of electricity all the time. It's not slash. Slash is weaker dot damage, but it compensates for it by proccing, by it's always dealing its damage because it bypasses armor, but it's weaker. Electricity is a stronger dot, but you have to work to get to it. Same with gas. So that's the compensation. That's part of the reason why the Phantasma looks so crap. And also elemental weightings, which was another issue that he appears to have. So this would be a way to fix it. If I'm going for like a big dot, I'm generally not throwing anything else on there. I don't want to dilute the dot weighting. Because if you're going dot and you need to put faction on, in my opinion, it's just better to go with a massive dot weighting. Like, I literally have 2 status electricity mods on here, because the Riven is one, plus a prime charge shell to further increase the electricity dot. So it's got a nice chunky elemental weighting, and we'll do the math on that real quick. Okay, so we've got 49.8 plus 165 from the Prime mod plus 60 from Shell Shock. So it's got a 274.8 electricity dot on it, which isn't insane in today's numbers, but that's still a chunky dot. It's going to do way more damage than just running a 60-60, right? Like, it's going to do a multiple more. So this might have been one of the issues. You can do the same thing with the heat, which I actually have another build for, and another Riven with a nice chunky weighting on it, but it's still built. It was actually built for Frostbite. I was messing around with something. Let's do Merciless and Red. So, okay, similar build, chunky heat weighting on it. We've even got a minus impact roll on it to further weight toward heat, even though it's lowering our raw modded damage, right? So, same philosophy. but there's no primed heat for shotguns, so that's just an ID mod. But same philosophy. Let's go ahead and shoot some stuff. Speed it up. Again, no stacks, so we'll strip. Dies instantly. Stacks do wonders. So we're seeing 60k. $400k. 1.3 or 1.2 mil, 1.238. So again, decent heat dots, no priming. Like there's no viral boost, so I'm not getting like the viral status damage boost, and I'm not getting the additional savvy bonus, right? For having the extra status on there. So 1.23, let's say 1.2 plus 325%. So that with a proper priming, that heat dot would have just done a little over 5 mil. Right? And that sort of stuff's hard to test in the simulacrum, because none of the shit that we have really has that kind of stuff. Like obviously the murmur, but that's changing factions and whatnot. So this is the recommendations for the Phantasma. And I think the build video is long enough. The regular Phantasma, please, for the love of God, unless you are doing a Avenger setup, and I'm assuming you know how to make that work, don't even bother. Don't even bother with crit chance on that. It's 3%. Just go the full status build, and mod accordingly. Do like 2 60/60s, for like an element that deals damage to whatever the enemy that you're shooting has like plus 75 weakness to, or is like a corrosive and will partially strip their armor, whatever you're dealing with. If you're going up against the Corpus, obviously all in on Toxin. If you wanted to do like 60/60s for magnetic, if you're running lower level stuff, that's cool too. It's just about getting it to deal damage. So like if you ever come across like a build that you've set up and it's not dealing damage, by nature, if you have like a Riven, you have a bunch of Forma, and you shoot it at something, and it's one of the modern Prime weapons, like the Phantasma didn't come out that long ago. If you do something with it and it's not doing damage, you've done something wrong. It's not a build. Okay. So next time, that's the troubleshooting. Pretty basic. If it's not dealing damage, it's not the right build. So after this, did a level cap with Well Played Ninjas. Congratulations on your first level cap. Nova Umbral and Amalistic. So you're going to see them running around in the background, but it won't show them on the side. But if you see the names of the other people, that's what I was playing with. But here's the 3 worst level cap Demolist kills. Because I was trying to get footage specifically for the Electric Phantasma for this video. And it was this one. So I'm going to reiterate it in the video, but it's with Merciless stacked. Obviously, Galvanized and Hell are stacked. It's hard to get rid of those because of the duration of the procs. Or duration of the stacks. There's one with everything stacked, but it's against a Nox. I don't prime in any of them, but in the last one, Well Played was playing Citrine, doing the level cap, and I do receive quite a bit of help killing the Demolist at the very end. And on the first one, I think, is going to be a Nox, and the reason why it melts at the end is because of a Citrine crystal giving so much status to the Phantasma. You can see the heat go from like next to nothing, or see the electricity go from like next to nothing to like a couple hundred in like a magazine, and it's because of the citrine crystal. So if you want to know what happened, that's what it was. But even then, you can still see it's killing level cap. Like, I didn't prime any of these weapons. Any sort of status that, like a viral or anything that I picked up, was from like the Panzer. Okay, so it's not like I'm priming. I'm not using a secondary encumber or anything. Matter of fact, I was using a heat laden with flare. So no priming was taking place. So that's just really all there is to say. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. We're going to go into the clips for the level cap. If you want to watch them, by all means. But that's how to fix your Phantasma. Beam weapons are super complicated. It's okay, but the end result is, if you've come up with a build and it's not doing anything, that's not the right build. The weapon isn't shit. Like, if that's the case. So, proc weighting matters. I would recommend to Moog if you ever watch this, or Moog. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. I'm not trying to, like, mispronounce your name to, like, establish anything, right? But I would recommend dump statting, like, getting rid of viral. And for your build with your Riven, if you want to keep the toxin, maybe turn it into a corpus killer. It would be really, really solid with that toxin weighting. 90 toxin mod, 60-60 toxin mod, crit chance, crit damage, corpus faction. That'd be some good shit. But anyway, thank you for watching. We're going to go to the clips now. And by the way, I am very shit. I am learning how to edit. So you're going to notice editing slowly being incorporated in. And this video is not going to be any different. So I will try to get better, but I'm working on it. So it's very, very limited. Some basic clips and voiceover so far, if you wanted to know where we're at. So square 2 on the long journey to editing. But anyway, hope you enjoy. Thank you. Alright, so we have level cap footage. This is the Electric Phantasma. We've got stacks. We've got galvanized stacks, merciless stacks, against a, looks like a Nox. Obviously, we're stripping to gain access to our electricity dot without the effective damage reduction. Just wailing on it. We're getting Zada's raw damage boost, the extra instance, and Breach Surge for additional damage. And here's Citrine's Crystal, amps the damage even more. Just a pretty basic kill. This one is just clearing out some trash mobs, just showing how effective it is against enemies. We've got a Frost on the team that's doing full strip, so that's helping out a lot. Some unstripped enemies. Obviously, Frost came in there at the last second. This clip is no stacks, except for galvanized. We don't have any merciless stacks, so you can see worst possible circumstance. We are full stripping again with Zadas this time. Probably going to pop a Breach Surge here in a second. Just to give you an idea of how it performs in a couple of circumstances. But this is about the worst of it. So it kills level cap even when you don't prime. Obviously priming, running like a cumber setup does way better. This is another kill. This time with some boosted damage. We're going to get some help from Citrine on this one. And there is going to be some viral stacks and whatnot on it. You can see the electricity scaling pretty quickly, as it should. And Citrine's 4 is going to help us out. So it does fine at level cap. Perfectly acceptable.